Alright, good evening everyone. This is Jaime Vaquera, and I'm going to go through the process of installing CentOS 7 on a virtual machine. Lately I've been kind of experimenting with different Linux OSs, and I've been trying different flavors, and I'm going to choose CentOS 7 because there's actually a minimum version that pretty much starts you off with just a command line prompt instead of trying to install it with an actual GUI desktop interface. This is something I've been playing around, especially at work, because we're kind of moving towards using more of Linux. But anyway, I've kind of been interested in this area, so I'm going to go ahead and show about how to install just a CentOS OS, which is actually available on their website. So if you go to CentOS.org, you will find that they have a couple of different versions. There is 6.10, 7, 8, and also have Stream. But we're going to concentrate mostly on this guy right here, which is 7. There is an ISO for if you're using a x86 64-bit. If you're using an older machine like an i386, there is one that is available. But we're going to be using this one for our virtual machine. I've already downloaded the image file. I have it ready to go, so we're not even bothered with trying to download. But this is out there for anybody to try and use. I highly recommend to kind of go through the process of doing an installation and seeing how it is easy nowadays to actually install in Linux OS, especially on a virtual machine. What we're going to be using is for our virtual machine is I'm just going to be using VMware Player Workstation 15. This is the non-commercial use. Like I said, I use this for my own personal. I don't really. Again, this is just for me to kind of been playing around with different OSs, and especially the different Linux types that are available out there. So to begin with, now that I have my image file, I'm going to go ahead and create a new virtual. I'm going to use, I'm going to tell it like I want to use CentOS 7, and I'm going to use, there's a couple image files available. Actually, let me go back over here and kind of show that there's different versions of the ISO. There's a full DVD version. There's an ISO that has pretty much everything. There's an ISO that has live GNOME, which is one of the GUI desktop interfaces, and there's also a live KED. And then there's the minimal one that is available. That this is the one that we're actually going to be using for our demonstration here. And there's also a net install, which is much smaller, where you're installing and you're using pretty much your network to pretty much do the completion of the installation for CentOS 7. But again, we're just going to go ahead and concentrate with this one, this minimal one. Alright, so now that we have our ISO file, I'm going to go ahead and click on it. It's going to detect that, oh, you have CentOS 7. That's one thing I like about this VM workstation. It kind of picks up most of the time what you're trying to load up. Next, I want to have this actually not go here, but I want it to go elsewhere because I don't like having it on the C drive. I like to put this guy on my virtual machines on their own little area. I already have a folder over there in one of the separate drives. That way it keeps it, because virtual machines tend to grow in size. If you know, you tell it to cap it at, like, say we're going to cap this at, I don't know, 30 gigs. I just don't want it to be on the same drive as my C drive. I just don't like that. Alright, it's on my F drive. I'm actually going to update up this. It says 20 is usually the maximum, or the recommendation size is 20, but I'm going to go ahead and increase it to 30. Leave everything else as the way it is. Again, I'm not picky about whether you want to use a single file for my OS or have multiple files. Leave it at the recommended multiple files. Alright, we have everything here, everything it is. The minimum spec on this is 1 gig. You can up this, but again, since this is command line prompt, I think 1 gig is more than enough. Alright, after that, on ready to boot up. Yep, we have here. We can test the media, install CentOS 7 or install 7. Test this media usually means like, hey, we want to make sure that this ISO is good before you get ready to install. This is really helpful, especially if you're trying to put this on a different media, like on a USB drive or on a DVD drive or DVD disc, and you try and put it in, and if there's a problem with that media, you want to know, because you hate to go through an installation and find out like, oh, there's a problem with this media, and you have to now create another one. We'll go through the we're actually just going to go ahead and skip it, and we're actually going to go straight into installing the CentOS 7. Alright, goes, press any key to print, and it is not undergone an upstream testing. That's fine. I've actually already installed this before, but it's kind of nice that it tells you, hey, this RMD has not really gone through this sort of using against this, but I know it works because I was able to do this earlier. Most of the time, some of this Linux OS can pretty much just be installed on pretty much any system, processor, whatever combination, as long as it meets it. If you go really, really old, that's where you start having problems. Okay, so now we take it to the welcome screen. We choose what language. There is a little box here to test out to make sure that this is the language you want to use. Yep, it works just fine. Actually, that you do the search for that. Sorry. So if you're looking for another language, there's Japanese, Spanish, Espanol right there. So it has a lot of capabilities for different languages other than just English. All right, and then for English, what type of English is it? Different dialects of English, but we're going to say English United States. Okay, continue. And this is the thing I like about this particular nice little installation manager. It has pretty much all the stuff here that you need to go through as far as to get your installation going, as far as like different little areas. You got your localization, date and time, New York, yep, got that, that's good. Keyboard, language support United States, software, installation source, it detects, it has this nice little verify to verify that the ISO is pretty good, or you could also do it from against the network. Like I said, there's depending on if you're pushing out this installation, from one source area and you're trying to push it to a workstation, this is pretty good for administrators to kind of have where everybody's getting the same installation instead of trying to take one installation off to different workstations. And also, this kind of works out where you can push it out in several workstations. Anyway, that might be something that most of you guys already know. Software installation, and it has this where again, the minimal install. If you use the different ISOs, you probably will have more base environments, different GUI environments that you can choose off of. Here we're using a minimum. We don't really have any. We don't have very much section to select from here. Alright, system, here we go. Installation destination, automatically partitioning selected. So this is one where you pretty much can review as far as what you're going to be putting your OS on. It kind of shows you all your standard disk here. We only have one 30 gig disk, so and it tells you where you want to install it. It says here disk left unselected will not be touched, which is nice. Also, especially let's say for this and network. So add a disk. I believe that you can probably add in a disk if you want to add in another disk or network drive to go along with your operating system. I guess it just kind of mounts it, so that way it knows like, hey, for this machine, make sure you utilize this disk here when this system boots up. Other storage options, partitioning, by default automatically configure the partitioning. For those that are more advanced, you can configure the partitioning yourself if there's a certain way you prefer to have your partitioning. Also, you could also encrypt your data as well, which is a pretty neat option. And you select a phrase when you go through the installation. For now, we're not going to encrypt the data. We're just going to go ahead and leave that as is. All right, we'll click away, everything. Okay, cool. Here now it says that with the caution sign removed, we're pretty much ready to go on. There's other things here to also use. KDump, network and hostname. Actually, we need to get this. This is one key thing you have to know, is that when you're going through the installation, it will not have your Ethernet connectivity turned on. This is something I was able to learn firsthand when I did the installation. Was like, how come my network isn't working? Well, because we never enable it during the installation. By doing that, you enable the installation, so therefore it picks up, it gets an IP address. So this is really helpful because without it not being turned on, you have to go through manually to actually turn on your network connectivity, and I had to pretty much do a Google search on how to do that. Having it off is a pretty good way, especially if you're going to have a system where they're not going to have any network connectivity as well. So I could imagine that this is probably useful for if you're having in an environment where you don't want to have outside network access. You want to have everything in-house. You want to do your updates manually or through some sort of in-house depository. Again, that means that if we're going to do any updates, it's going to come through this one repository, and this is where they have to get all of their stuff from. And I imagine that you could probably add in another connectivity. See, there's other ways you could also connect any other types of network connectivity. So again, you could have certain network connectivities turned on or off as you go through the installation. Here I'm going to go ahead and give this a host name, which will be something like I don't know. I'll call this CentOS VM. This is the name of my home network. Apply. There we go. That's the host name now. You could also configure your network connectivity as well if you want to go that far. I'm not. I'm just going to leave everything as a default. Okay, we're going to click on done. All right, we got that. We got our network or host name set up. Now a security policy if we want to do any sort of security policy profile. This is a little bit more advanced than what I want to do. Again, this is really if you really want to make a really secure up your CentOS operating system. But here again, don't really even need it because I'm not really going to put anything in here. So I'm not even going to bother with a security policy. Alright, begin installation. Alright, and while it's installing, you can also go ahead and do things like set up your root password, which I will do that. There's already a set root password that I would like to put on. Okay, got that. User creation. Go ahead and put in my name. Set up a user. Here it is. There's my. I like the fact that it creates a username based upon my full name. Making this administrator. Yes, I want to be an administrator. Require a password to use this account. Yep. There we go. You could go even further as far as advanced if you need to change your home directory. Also put in specify a user ID manually, which means that you want to put a specific user number for that user. or put it with a group ID manually. And then there's group membership, add the following user to the following groups if you want to, but again, not really good. I don't got any groups, don't really care for that right now. Okay, so there we go. I've created my users, and now we're just going to go ahead and wait for this installation to finish. Okay, now that our installation is complete, we're going to go ahead and reboot. Yeah, there we go. Now it's starting to look. And there we go. We have our basic CentOS Linux OS, and you will come up to a login screen. I'll go ahead and use the username that I created. And the password. And there I am right in. And this is all you get basically. This is go in, we don't have anything there. Use PWD. There is the path that I'm currently in. If I do an ls/, gives me all of the directories in my root here. That's so pretty much this is your classic traditional Linux OS. Now before we end this, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick update. CentOS actually uses a command called yum. Yum is where you do your update. So there is a website that shows you all of these commands, which is centoshelp.org, and there's a lot of useful information, commands, and also the commands for yum. There's an RMP, but that's for Red Hat Linux, but since we're using CentOS, this is all of the information that you can use for having to do an update of your environment. So for example, the first one, this displays currently installed software versus enabled or disabled free status. So let's go ahead and use this one here as an example. So we'll do a yum. Already got yum repo all terminating. There it is. And it shows you a nice table of everything that is enabled and disabled as far as your all of your repositories. But let's just go ahead and do an update. All right, so let's go ahead and do an update. So let's do yum update. And when I try doing that, it says that you need to be root to perform this command. So in order to do any sort of thing with yum update, or to do update, you have to put in the word sudo yum update. And it tells you, oh, okay, well, we trust you received the usual lecture from the local system administrator, which it's basically me. It boils down to these three things: respect your privacy for others, think before you type, and with great power comes great responsibility. Take it for Spider-Man, I think. I don't know. There's other places that may have been referenced. Anyway, so it asks for my password. All right, and there it goes. It's gonna go ahead and do the update. And there it is saying, okay, we have a whole bunch of updates. It kind of shows you everything that is going to be updating. and it tells you how big of the size is, 108. So I'll go ahead and get that started. Anyway, all right, I'm gonna let this thing run. But seriously, that's all there is for installing a CentOS OS system. There's other versions you could try. The highest thing I could pretty much recommend is to just go ahead and play around with the different versions of the image files. You can also try 8, even the CentOS Stream as well. That's the great thing about Linux, is that a lot of this stuff is stuff that you can go ahead and try out, and pretty much just so that way you could start experimenting something outside of Windows. Mac OS is also a type of a Linux. Well, actually, I wouldn't say Linux, but it's kind of somewhat similar. But this here, because the community for this has been growing more and more online, you can see that there's more of a push, because not only is it more secure, but also it's because it's generally is a bit better as far as, because again, you could take an old machine and put a Linux operating system that's probably a little bit newer, or and there's even lightweight type of Linux OS that you could also put on that can help extend the life of a machine. That's the thing I'm kind of been playing around with, is actually using this sort of stuff to kind of bring new life to old machines without having to go ahead and say, oh, after a year or two, a machine that's on Windows usually gets a little bit where, okay, well, it's outdated, it's not fast enough. Well, with Linux, an old machine can probably handle a lot of things that you can pretty much do, and you not have to worry about it getting bogged down with things, because again, on a Windows operating system, a lot of the software starts demanding more resources as things get a little bit better, things change, and it sometimes doesn't seem to catch up, and sometimes leaving some of the hardware a little bit far behind. Anyway, that's enough of me blabbling, but we'll go more into detail as far as Linux operating system. Again, thank you for at least watching. If you're more interested, please follow my channel. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.